Kia ora and welcome to the Bay of Plenty Regional Environment Network sessions, online from 14th today to the 21st of September. My name is Janie Stevenson and I am the Bay of Plenty Regional Coordinator for New Zealand Landcare Trust. This event is an annual collaboration between New Zealand Landcare Trust and Envirohub to support environmental groups across the Bay of Plenty. This year, after 2 in-person event cancellations, thanks to COVID, we are taking the Ren Hui online for a week instead. And it will be a show of lunchtime inspirational kōrero. We hope you have a delicious kai and a kapa with you today and have registered for our other fantastic Ren sessions over the coming week. These sessions will be recorded and the links will be available for viewing on the Envirohub and New Zealand Landcare Trust website, so feel free to share them. We would really appreciate it if you could keep your mics on mute during the presentation, and any questions can be typed into the chat function below. Just make sure your questions are addressed to panellists and attendees. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from Dean Flavell and Elva Conroy from Makahae Marae on Kaitiakitanga in Action, a cultural perspective. Elva is a planning and community engagement guru for Conroy and Donald Consultants, and Dean Flavell is the Māori Cultural Heritage Manager for Tauranga City Council. Today they are speaking from the perspective of their other full-time role, as whānau from Makahae Marae and kaitiaki of the Waiari stream, which flows into the mighty Kaituna River. Kia ora, Elva and Dean. Thank you for being with us today and welcome.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Janie. Ka huri noa I mihi mai ana ki a tātou e hui mai nei I tēnei wā. So, kia ora, welcome. I would like to start this session with a bit of a karakia, and being Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, the first day of Māori Language Week, I'd just like to start with a very traditional karakia. And then I'd like some time just to kind of maybe talk about the reason or the purpose of why karakia is important in the work that we do with the environment. So I'll just start with this karakia. Unuhia ko te pau mo, ko te pau rata, ko te pau whakaurahanga ki te tōnga, te manuhira ki te tāui, ko kiri ki te mate me hoki ki te ora, ki mihia, whanno, haramai te tōki, haumie, uie, taiki. Just briefly, the prayer that I've just said is, it imagines yourself as being a bird. You're flying into an area, so you come to the first post, at this middle post and the most southern post of this house. This house we call the Taiao. We acknowledge those who have passed and who have contributed. We also acknowledge the future. And I suppose as that bird, we are the symbol that of the original environmentalists that came from Tāne Mahuta, the birds, the creation of his. But I'd just like to also, I suppose, connect us. So it's important around, the karakia is important because the lesson or the message, I suppose, that I'd like to share today is within our mythology of an ancestor called Rata. There is a story, it's told to most children in New Zealand, hear the story of Rata and the Great Tōtara, and that he tried to chop it down, and then the insects and the creatures of the forest put it back together again, and then the next day when he went there, the tree was standing again. So he attempted to chop it down again, and then went back to the village, came back again, and the tree was standing. On the third attempt, he cut the tree down, and then he hid amongst the forest itself. And what he witnessed was the children of Tāne Mahuta, as they chanted and they made their noise to put the tree back together again. And then he exposed himself out of the bush and said, "What are you doing? You know, well, why are you doing this to me?" And basically, they replied to him, "Because you're not acknowledging Tane Mahuta, you're not acknowledging the cutting down of the tree that you're doing, you're disrupting our environment without any praise or any asking." So that is the lesson that we have in our mythology around the importance of doing karakia. And that's that connectivity, because us as human beings, we are connected to the same network, I suppose. And because we're I think humans, sometimes we think we're inferior to everybody else. Well, you know, and so it's about, if anything, we're the last creatures to be created, and so we're the newest. So we must give, I suppose, ask our tuakana for those types of permission. Just to move on from to that, I might move. Elva, can we start our?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to do that. Cheers.
Right. So I guess I know Janie hadn't introduced us individually, but part of who we are is actually where we are. So our place in the world actually defines our identity. So before we talk about our different forms of kaitiakitanga, in practice, part of it's about setting the scene of where are we. See?
Yeah, so I mean, just again picking up on that connection to Rata, so we know that Rata was a builder of canoes. He also was one of those who was responsible for the building of the Te Aroa Waka, which is Elva and my tribal canoe that we whakapapa back to. Rata, the makers of the Te Aroa canoe were Rata and Ngā Hue, and Wahiao. So now the ancestor that I've just mentioned, Ngā Hue, he is related to a mythology that we have here in the Bay of Plenty around the story of Pounamu or Greenstone, the Tuhua, and the Sandstone. So there's a whole legend around how those three come together to create tools. So the Ngā Hue that was here, he took greenstone back to Hawaii and he gifted those two stones to Rata, and who fashioned those into adzes. Those adzes were formed to carve the canoe, and so it's that connection that they have. And then once the canoe was built, it came here to Aotearoa, and our ancestor Tia, so we're descendants of Tia, and Tia and Hei were twin brothers. Waitaha today come from Hei, Tapuika come from Tia. And when the canoe came, it was poised out at the ocean here, just in front of Matarehua, near Motiti Island, the small island next to Motiti. And that's where Tia stood, and he said, and he gave his tomo. He claimed to the land the connection of his son, who was Tapuika, in the term of mai ngā pai maunga ki te toro poke e tūkau mai la ki te wai, ki te awa e rere mai ana ki te takapu o taku tamaiti o Tapuika. So for us in Tapuika and Ngāti Tuhi, we hold that as a treasure, a taonga that connects us to the land before the canoe even landed. And so that's where we are situated today. We're in Te Puke, and that's, I suppose, I'm just sharing our connection to how we view what you might call our tribal boundary. We call it a takapu, the belly of Tapuika. So yeah.
And I guess a lot of our tribal boundaries are based on landmarks such as maunga and awa, which is rivers. And even at our local level, so our hapu or sub-tribe level, our awa is the Waiari, which is close by to our marae. Our marae is called Makahae, It's also the name of our ancestor, our tupuna. And if you see the photo, this left-hand corner, our wharenui, that is also called Makahae. So Makahae is our marae, our wharenui, and our tupuna. And our hapu is Ngāti Tuhiki. So, I mean, for us, it's not just our awa, but it's also our people. So I guess before we start talking about Kaitiakitanga in action, I guess it's good to start off with what is Kaitiakitanga. I guess plain English as far as possible.
Yeah, I suppose for me, well, for us, I suppose it's the tiakitanga. Tiaki means to be able, a guardian, or to protect or preserve something. When you're a kaitiaki, then the addition of the word kai means that you are somebody who practices tiakitanga. So Kaitiakitanga is those people who practice the art or the caring of the earth and the ocean, plants, etc. But I think for me, I think kaitiaki is also the Maori way of the rules, I suppose, and the way that we interact. And kaitiaki can be, I suppose, a way where you police the environment from a traditional perspective. So in policing an environment, it would be like laying a rahui or like a prohibition on an area because there's something wrong with that area. Whether that's pollution or whatever, but it's around putting a rahui on it to give it time to clean it, and then you're able to then practice tiakitanga in fixing it up. But I think also as kaitiaki, I mean, we're all kaitiaki in this sense, but I think we also should remember every time we do something in the environment, we change the natural flow of things. So and that's part of the reason why I personally believe karakia is important. If you were to cut down a branch on a tree, what insects rely on that branch for their life? So likewise, if you plant a tree into an environment, what are you hoping what will that tree, what do you hope that it will achieve with those natural species or that live in the area? So every time we go out, we always go out with good intention to plant or to clean the environment, but what effects, I suppose, are we causing on the environment by doing that? And so that's something that I'm always conscious of when planting trees or removing trees. Yeah, so I mean, it's more of a practical way of looking at tiakitanga. Yeah.
I guess I got a few things to add as well. For those who work in the resource management space, we see kaitiakitanga defined to the nth degree as guardianship. And as you've heard with the way Dean has described it, it's much wider than just purely guardianship. I mean, I think some of the kōrero we hear is like, it's not just about, you know, we're here to protect the environment, but we are part of the environment. You know, our and the birds are our elders, or not our elders, our tuakana, our elder siblings. So there's this inherent responsibility to make sure that they're cared for. I'd heard someone describe it to me, kaitiakitanga, as the 3 R's. So it's the responsibility, it's about respect, and it's about reciprocity. So as Dean was saying, it's not just about taking all the time, it's about giving back and ensuring that there's balance as well, more than anything. I know Pāropata, Rob McGowan always says as well, you know, if the environment is well, then we're well. So there's this huge connectivity between the health of the environment and the health of the people.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, the river that we associate ourselves directly as Ngāti Tuhiki is the Waiari. our history. I mean, our ancestors have lived along that river since arrival. There are pa sites that are there, and over the last 20 odd years, I've been fortunate enough to create relationships with those landowners, those orchardists, and they have freely given me access to the various pa sites that sidle up into either their orchards or their farms. That role for me is just reconnecting with it, because a lot of our people have been disconnected because of land ownerships and things like that. But I suppose I'm one of these people who I prefer to create good relationships. In a way, I'm an educator in that sense, that I like to educate people around what they have on their land or what was once there, so that there's an importance, hopefully, that they share in regards to being kaitiaki for those various pa sites and that are on the edges, which sidle right up onto the Waiari River. We have a spiritual taniwha or tipua. He's a guardian. His name is Tami. He's the taniwha of the Waiari. For us, he's mentioned in our mihis. So when we welcome people to Ngāti Tuheke, to our marae, we welcome them also to the Waiari. And that the kaitiaki there being tame will safeguard you if you wish to go and swim in the river. Our aunts, well, not ancestors, but our uncles and aunties, I mean, prior to having water at the pa, used to do all their washing, clothes was all done on the Waiari. There's an area where the marae is just down near the river, where the whenua or the afterbirths of our people are buried there under the trees along the banks of the river there. So our connection's been there for a long time, and we still stay connected. However, I suppose part of the situation we find ourselves in is we're fortunate, our generation's fortunate that we've been able to see and experience these, but it's our children and their children that have been divorced from this. And so this kind of is leading into our projects that we do. So we're really proactive around different projects to bring kids in, bring our children in, not only our own personal children, but the school groups and that, to teach them and share with them part of, I suppose, who we are and our histories. So, yeah.
So we'll now share a couple of our projects to give it, I guess, an idea of what Kaitiakitanga, the different forms of Kaitiakitanga for us. So it's beyond just getting the gumboots dirty. There's a range of different methods. So we'll start with our first one. Where is it? Here we go. This was the enhancement project for our pa, so the pa site on which our marae is located. One of the challenges we had many years ago was that we'd lost our view shaft. We had a significant amount of weeds. We'd lost our views, and we also had a lot of the, I guess, noxious weeds such as, I've lost the name now, sorry.
We had a lot of woolly nightshade in that, didn't there?
Yeah. And so thanks to regional council funding to get the area cleared and planted. Once again, you learn a lot of stuff along the way. So we had a 1-year gap between clearing our site and planting. So as you can imagine, we had a lot of weeds growing back in between, but things you learn along the way. What was significant about just getting the area cleared was we could see the hills again. We could see the Papamoa Hills, we could see Otawa Pa, so I guess our mountain landmarks. And also to the right, we had views back to the coast, so we could see Tuhua again. So that was huge. It was absolutely. The big part was bringing people on site for tree planting. So as Dean said, it's not just our kids, but bringing on the schools. So we had both primary schools and high schools coming on site to help with planting. We had a number of whānau working days, and what was cool there is having whānau come back who had been away for a very long time and bringing their kids to our pa, which they'd never been. So that was a significant achievement for us, getting whānau back. 3,700 trees, and that was over a couple of weeks. I think we stepped it out. So the highlights was, restoring our view shafts, bringing whānau back, connecting with our schools. We had a connection with Te Puke High School who did some drone monitoring for us. So they'll be keen to keep returning to our marae to continue doing regular drone monitoring. The challenges, which is the case for any conservation group, is the weeds. It's never ending. We have limited numbers in terms of working bees. It's often the same ones involved. And we have had offers from schools and say PD workers. The tricky thing is though it requires, from learning, some education on what trees to pull and what trees to not pull. So a few learnings from that particular project. So this one continues, weed control. I mean, the wattles are huge at the moment. Woolly nightshade's back in some places. And so that's probably our focus for the next year before we put in some more plants.
Yeah, we had a question there, Elva, around where the plants were located from. They were all local.
Oh,
Rotorua, was it?
Yeah, so there was in Ngongotaha, yes.
Ngongotaha, yeah.
Because we needed to order so much, the nursery in Ngongotaha, Rotorua, was able to provide us the volume. We had alternatives with matakana. So at that time, we didn't actually have a huge amount of local stockists, if that makes sense.
I suppose one of the things that's been highlighted to us in that, and we're really keen to look at kahika tia, so gathering the seeds and maybe starting to propagate them at the pa, at the marae, and so Te Kahika is the name of the pa, and so we I suppose associate ourselves to it, and we're a little bit like the tree itself. It's a wider family. The kahika kind of grows on watery, wet. It doesn't mind wet feet, but its roots don't go deep. They kind of go across and hang on to each other and get their support from each other. And that's a little bit how we are in a way. A lot of our family are around the world, certainly around New Zealand. So the haukainga, or the whānau who are at home, the numbers are kind of low, but we keep and we use Facebook and things to keep in contact with our whānau and that. But it's great, as Elva alluded to, when we have fixed days where we're doing either planting or things like that, then we get a huge response from families, and they'll all come back and support and bring their kids. And it's about reconnecting, because even though our generation knows each other, the generations to come, because they've been brought up around the country, they're not as connected as I suppose we are. Yeah.
So another example of, I guess this is a huge one for us as well, for our iwi as a whole as well, is, here we go, kaituna.
Yeah, so this is part of me with my Te Maru o Kaituna hat on. And this is really exciting. I love this project. I mean, we have an existing wetland there. The target is 100 hectares of wetland, and so with Te Tumu and Te Pourepo Kaituna is the name of the bigger area, and it's highlighted there in one of those screens there. And then that wee little area, Te Tumu Kawa, this part here. So that was part of an agreement through when they put the eastern motorway through. in the Tapuika settlement and the Ngāti Whakaue that's yet to come, there was a first right of refusal. And so the highway brought the land, the farm, and so we kind of, when they didn't need it, when it was surplus, as iwi, we went and said to OTS, or the Office of Treaty Settlement, hey, we'd be interested in that block of land, and we'd be interested in forming an agreement with Regional Council around contributing back and turning this into a big wetland area. So that's basically how that is now, and it's something I think the iwi are proud to be part of something like this and share it with our wider community. You can see there's a few pictures there of people, some of the kids and that, and I think was it Bay Conservation, or so they run a fantastic program down there, Michelle Elborn and them, and the staff are with the kids and that, and so it's educational, it's teaching the kids. These are future kaitiakis been training, and so we just love this project. I mean, it's an ongoing project, but it offers so much more, I think, to the local region around how wetlands play an important part in what we do. So our name for this area is Te Ateotika. So that's the Tapuika name. And to understand that name, you have to look at the North Island as a fish. So Te Hikuotika is the up north, that's the tail. Te Upukotika is the head down in Wellington, and so Te Manawaotika is Lake Taupo, named by our ancestor Tia, Taupo Nui Atea. This part here is like the liver or the ate. So the liver of the fish comes through there, and it has to pass through a wetland before it goes out into the ocean. So it's naturally the cleaning of the fish, or the liver of the fish that gets cleaned. So that's our name for this particular area, but we haven't applied it to any of this because it is traditionally belongs to Tapuika, that particular ingoa or name. Yeah.
So another example for us of Kaitiakitanga is, so it's unfortunately not just about gumboots, but also getting the pens and the keyboards sturdy. So as Dean alluded to, our iwi have a treaty settlement in place. The legislation passed in 2014. One of the outcomes was the formation of Te Matua Kaituna River Authority, which is a co-governance entity comprising 4 councils and multiple iwi. So this group is active. Dean is the chair of this river authority. We're very lucky. And then from this river authority are a number of statutory documents, such as the Kaituna River document, or Te Tonga Tuku Iho, Te Tini Atuna, which is an action plan with projects specifically for the Kaituna catchment. And also within our iwi, we also have our own strategic documents, so our Tapuika environmental plan, and even for our marae, we have our own, our own strategic plan which we operate off. So where advocacy comes in for us, we get involved also in consent processes, particularly discharges of wastewater into river. So some of the more recent ones have been the Te Puke wastewater discharge into our waiari, and the AFCO meatworks discharge into the Kaituna River. So it's like the unexciting stuff, like submissions. For us, it's actually really important to be actively involved in processes as well.
When just a point on when we're going through settlement, there's a part of the settlement is around cultural redress, and so some of the other tools that were put into the kete were deeds of recognition on various lands and rivers, statutory acknowledgements. The statutory acknowledgements are both now in the local local authorities in their planning. So with Tauranga City Council and Western Bay District Council, those statutory acknowledgements are in their documents now, which was part of the reasoning why we wanted to go this way. But we also formed a very strong relationship with the Department of Conservation. So the option was to have a protocol with the department, but we felt we have a better relationship with them, and so we went for a relation agreement, and so that is Te Kaitako Whakauterangi. So whakauterangi is a cloak that one of our ancestors used to use when bringing peace to an argument. Or to a particular purpose. So we named our relationship agreement with the department Te Kaitaka, being a cloak, Whakauterangi, the great cloak of peace. And that is a commitment to work with the Department of Conservation. And that has come to fruition in the sense that one of our younger members of the tribe, Rapuni Wilson, he actually works with them, with the department, and he's great value, and brings that connection that we have with through that agreement. So yeah, that's all.
I guess to add to the work that Rapuni's doing, so he's employed by DOC. Right. We had a number of reserves returned to Crown Reserves returned to Tapaweka, and so the role that Rapuni plays is around writing the reserve management plan for these reserves, in addition to protocols around cultural materials and other matters. So it's really great having one of our own being actively involved in, I guess, that planning side, but also it's not just the planning side, but the building awareness and understanding within DOC. It's significant for us. So one more in terms of existing projects. I guess it's like not just the care of our whenua, but the care of our buildings. So a large portion of our time is also dedicated towards caring our buildings. We see our buildings as our tupuna, our ancestors, and so so we ensure that that the buildings are cared for and that they're warm and safe for our whānau. So one of our significant projects earlier last year was being part of the Marae DIY show, having whānau on board just to help with getting a lot of our building restoration and pa restoration underway. That was huge.
And these types of projects like this, it brings everybody back home. We literally had hundreds of people come back home, whānau come back home. But it gives and provides the practical option to teach our history. So when you're painting that carving there, you know who you're painting. And what is that pattern that you're painting? Learn it. The kuru. Where does the kuru sit in nature? Why is it here? So it's a really good practical way to teach, especially our younger members of the whānau.
We're also keen to share two projects that's on the horizon for us. I guess our projects just keep going. So Dan, you can start with this one.
So this is as part of the Te Marua Kaitara, the River Authority. We have a taunga waka. This is a objective that which is in the action plan. This is kind of creating the opportunity for our people to reconnect with the river around a traditional kaupapa, and so waka ama, and this also brings in the various groups like at Makatu, the Makatu Hoi Waka Club, also the building of waka, possibly the development of a kind of a waka shelter or a waka centre. That's what we're looking at down on the kaituna, the lower part of the kaituna there. It's a celebration for tangata whenua as waka tangata, so it's picking up on those more traditional roots around canoeing and being connected to water, but it's also around restoring cultural practices and knowledge in the reo. through, again, an activity that brings people together. The lesson, I suppose, that I have with this is some years ago, I was living down on the Wanganui River, and they have a thing called the Te Hoi Waka, and it was an initiative back in maybe the 90s or late 80s to put their people back on the river and start at Taumaranui and go all the way down the river and end up in Wanganui. And as you went down, they tell you the history of the river. They point out what's important, the different types of trees, etc., that are growing in the river, and so in the river area. And so I jumped on 3 of those, and I just found it fascinating. And I don't know why we don't do this across the country. And so this is the starting point. I would love for this type of thing to be on the Kaituna River, where we can start up at the lakes, learn part of that, and then come down the entire length of the river and camp along the side of the river, etc. And so learning its history. That reconnection, because what I've found over my time is, unless you have a memory of something, then you know, you need memories of things to make them important to you. And so this is about creating the opportunity for future generations to create memories on the river. Once we've done that, that seed is planted, then they will take up that natural cause of being kaitiaki, the naturalness around being part of the river. So that's kind of one of the aspirational projects that is in the pipeline. Yeah.
Another project that we're keen to initiate soon, so not just our own hapu, but other hapu within Tapuika. And this is likely the case for other iwi within the Kaituna catchment, as a Pawtucket High project. A pātaka is like a cupboard or a pantry, so it's like creating and restoring and enhancing habitat for certain, I guess, our taonga species or food species. Works not just about food, but our taonga species. In the river, so some examples for us would be kakahi, or freshwater mussel, koda, or freshwater crayfish, the tuna, it's our taonga, the eel, watercress. Like, I know that's not native, but it is a significant, it is a species that's valued. And I guess in terms of inanga, is creating some habit, creating and enhancing some habit for inanga. The lower Kaituna areas not a great shape for some of these species, so a lot of it's around finding some good spots to do some, I guess, some targeted work. I mean, for us, it's not just about kai, but also opportunities to bring whānau back, connect them to some of our traditional ways of doing things and contemporary ways of gathering kai. And I guess whenever you are doing work on the ground and cultural practices, once again, there's opportunities to enhance deals. So learning the specific terms for some of the things that you're doing. Yeah, so that's on the horizon. So yeah, a bit of work to come for that. Over to you.
There is the possibility of singing a song that, and I'm only saying that because it's Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, and I heard on the radio that if you sing a song, then you've participated. However, what I've heard is everyone's on mute, and so if I sing a song, it'd be only me. So
I can unmute everyone.
Would you like to give it a go? Elva, do we have the words on the screen? Are you able to? Okay, there's the words. The words here. It's a very simple waiata, and I've added in a second verse, which is whenua, so it makes it kind of relevant. But I think to love each other is probably an important thing. So anyway, how this goes, if you don't know, E hara I te mea, no nai nei te aroha, no ngā tūpuna tuku iho, tuku iho.
Let's hear you, ladies.
Te whenua, no nai nei te aroha, no ngā tūpuna tuku iho.
A big mihi to you, Elva and Dean. What an amazing journey, and a great summary kōrero in a very short period of time of the mahi that you're doing at Makahae Marae and for the whole of the Kaituna and the Tapuika area. We're almost at our time, so I think we'll finish up now, but I just want to suggest that if anybody has some specific questions, Elva and Dean, would you be open to them contacting you? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, kia ora, Dean.
Thanks, everyone.
Kia ora, everyone. Thank you for attending this first REN session and bearing with our technical issues. And a big thank you to our presenters today. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Yeah, kia ora. Don't forget to register for the upcoming REN sessions at 12 o'clock every day this week and next Monday. And tomorrow we have Jade Kameta, who's going to kōrero on maramataka in conservation. So that will be really interesting. So you just need to go online and register for that. And we hope to see you there. Okay. Kia ora everyone and ka kite. Ngā mihi.